Hi, this is Lynn from Alamosa Quilt Company, and today I want to share with you another really easy project. It's a simple bag. Um, it's a panel, it's canvas, and this is what it's going to look like. Okay, it's a Coca-Cola one, but I also have here, I'm going to have to back up. This is the same thing. But you know, obviously a different pattern. I do have just one of these left if anyone is interested. I'll put a link to it in the description of this video if you're interested in that one, and then I'll also put a link to the video for this, or where you can buy this one too, the Coca-Cola one. The directions are printed right on the fabric. Okay, and you're free to follow the directions, and I did follow the directions for this one. But I'm going to show you some alternate directions, something that you can do if your machine only does a straight stitch. You don't have a serger, you don't have a machine that does zigzag or any fancy stitches, you just have a straight stitch machine. You can absolutely do this and make a really nice finished product. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. So let's get started. The first thing you need to do is cut it out. Just cut it out right on the lines. That's what it says here. Cut out bag pieces along the edges of the design. So you just cut it out. There's no dotted lines or anything. It's just right at the edge of the pattern for the pieces. And so what you're cutting out is the bag body, which is this. You get the two straps, and you get a pocket, which I'll show you in a few minutes. This one does not have a pocket. It has, instead of a pocket, what did it have? Oh, it had some little labels that you could put on stuff. So that's what that one has. But they're both the same nice, nice duck canvas, really nice. Make a nice finished bag without having a lot of interfacing or extra stuff. All you need for this is the panel and your sewing machine and some thread to follow the directions that are right here printed on. But for my directions, I needed a scrap the same size as the pocket, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. But let's get started because you got some ironing to do first. Okay, the first thing you need to do is, after you've cut your straps out, and I've already done it because it's kind of time consuming, but your strap, you'll have two of them like this, and what you do is first you fold it in half this way and press it nice. Okay, then you open that back out and you want to fold each side, and I do this one at a time. You want to fold each side with the raw edge as best you can to that fold, and then you do the same thing for the other side. Oops, stay in the frame. Do the same thing for the other side. Okay, and you'll see, I mean, doesn't have to be exact, all right? It's a strap. And then fold it over again and give it a final press. And then what I like to do is put a few clips. Okay, you can put a few pins if you want, but the clips just kind of hold it nice so that you don't have to do a lot, you don't have to fiddle with it a lot as you're sewing it. So I just get it all ironed nice, and then every so often put a clip. Okay, and do the same thing for the other one. Whoops, clip all the way. And then we're going to go to our sewing machine, and I put red thread in because this is red. You know, put whatever color you want, but for straps I like it to match so that if it's not exactly straight, it's not so noticeable. And so we're going to sew the straps, and then the pocket's already over at my sewing machine, and I'll show you about the pocket in just a second. So let's go to the sewing machine. Okay, so here's the pocket and what I did was I'm going to take a scrap of fabric. I got this boot fabric. This is the back side. And you want to just cut this scrap of fabric, whatever you got, cut it so that it is the same size as the pocket. And I just cut the pocket out of the panel and then put it right down on my scrap of fabric and put a ruler right at the edge and just cut it out that way. And I'm going to, so this is the bottom of the pocket. I'm leaving a hand's width, okay, in between. And I've got them pinned so that I don't forget, and sew it shut. But we're going to sew all the way around, leaving an opening, and then we're going to turn the pocket so that there's no raw edges. The directions that are printed right on there tell you to just turn the edges under and whatnot. And you can do that and it'll be fine, but I'm going to be a little fancier. So I'm just sewing this on with 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to back stitch right there. Sew to the corner, and I'm going to stop 1/4 inch away, pivot, back stitch again. Okay. So the pocket is basically made. Get some better scissors. Then what I like to do is just kind of angle trim this to reduce the bulk at the corner. Okay. Do that for all 4 corners. Okay, then we're going to turn that right side out and give it a good press, and put it and sew it on our bag. But I'm going to turn that, well, I'll go ahead and turn it right now. So you just turn it. Now, I'll wait till I turn the camera around. Let's go ahead and do the straps. Okay, when you're doing the straps, I like to sew the open side first. We're going to sew both sides. Sew the open side first. Okay, just pick a mark on your foot and try to be consistent. And then I don't even cut the thread, I just get the next one. Right in there. Keep going. I do like to cut that other one off because I don't want it dragging the floor, especially if your floor's not super duper clean. Like mine is not super duper clean underneath my sewing machine. Okay, that's one side on both of them. So, take the first one again and say I've already stitched. You see that I've already stitched this side, so I'm going to stitch the other side. It's not necessary to stitch the other side. It doesn't really do anything, but it adds some symmetry. It just makes it look more professional, and it'll hold it nicely in place if you ever wash it. Okay, so we've got both of those straps. Now, if you want to make your straps a little shorter, at this point, you know, you can cut them down or wait till you start trying to fit them and, you know, and do that. So you can make them shorter if you want. Okay, we've got our pocket. Here you can see the whole pocket there. And I've trimmed the edges, I've stitched. So now we need to turn it right side out. So that's why you back stitch right there, is so that you don't accidentally pull some stitching out as you're turning it. And this just chopstick from my local Chinese restaurant. Poke the corners out nice, and then I like to run it in there and give it a good press. Same thing on the other side, just run the chopstick in there and then come and hit it with the iron. Do the top edge as well. Okay, and then fold, just tuck that up in there, okay, and try to get it folded kind of nice. Press it. We don't need to worry too much about that because that's at the, we purposely put that at the bottom of the pocket so that when we sew it on, that's going to get sewn shut, so we don't have to do anything about that. It'll just happen. And I am going to top stitch right across here. Okay, can you see that? Kind of, because I used red. Well, you can see it better on that side. And that just gives it a nice finished detail. So now we have to figure out where this is going to go. Okay, so this is the front of the bag, and the design basically fills the entire front. So it's designed to go on the back of the bag. The bag has markings on the side, so this is the bottom right here at that fold. So we're going to go ahead and fold it there. And press. And then you've got these little marks over here too that are used for boxing the bottom. And so now we can figure out where we want to place our pocket. And so you can put your pocket on the outside or you can put your pocket on the inside. I'm going to put it on the inside. And luckily I can see the Coca-Cola through to the other side. So I can place my pocket where I want it. And then we're just going to stitch that on. And I'm just centering it by eye, but If you want to measure, get a ruler. So mine is, what is that, about 4 3/4 that way. It's about 4 1/2 this way, so I'll slide it over just a tad. That's good enough. And I'll put a couple pins to hold it in place while I stitch. Okay, but before we go and stitch, let's do some more ironing over here. So there are marks here where you fold this. Okay, this is a hot ruler, all right, and this will help. You can iron right to it. It's got markings on it, and so I just took and measured. So it looks like it's about, I don't know where those are, about 1/2 to 5/8, something like that. Just be consistent. It'll be just fine. So I'm going to take it, put it right here, push it down until I can see the fold. Okay, that's where the fold is. So this is my first fold. Looks like it's about 5/8 on here. And the thing about it is you can just iron right on with the ruler right underneath. So it gives you a really nice line, very easy, super straight. Well, as long as you put the ruler down straight, this will be straight. Okay, and then there's another fold that we need to do, which is essentially right where you put that, right at the bottom edge here. Just take it and fold it over like that. And I don't need my ruler for that because I've already used the ruler. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to tuck these handles, straps, right up under there and sew them on. But we got to iron the other side first. Okay, so there's that. And it's also a good idea to do this now before you sew the pocket on, because if you get the pocket too high or too low, if you haven't sewn it on, it's much easier to change it. Okay, we'll fold that under, and that looks okay. Okay. Now for handles, I usually like them to be about 4 inches or so, 4 to 6 inches, but this isn't probably going to be a 4-inch. So fold it in half, give it a little press right there so you know where the middle is, and then do about 2 to 2.5 inches away from there. I'm going to use my hot ruler. So it's right here at the 5. So I think I'm going to do 2.5. So that would be 7.5 over here. And just shove that up in there so it's all the way to the top, and put a clip. Make sure your handle is not twisted. Okay, and so it's got to go right there. Plug it in. And so you see I've done 2.5 inches from this edge over from the center. And we'll do the other side too. Again, I'll just put the 5 right there. Any marker would do. There's nothing special about 5. It's just the middle of the ruler. So 2.5 inches from the center. Shove it up in there. And 2.5 inches from the center again. Okay, so now we can go to the sewing machine. Okay, I'm going to sew the pocket on first. Since the back of since my bag is more of this brown color, I'm going to switch. This is the best match I have handy. Could probably find a better match, but you know, whoops. This one will work. So I'm just changing the bobbin thread. I'm leaving the red top thread in. Bring up my bobbin thread. And now I'm going to sew the pocket on. Get all these clips out of the way. Ah. So start at one corner. Okay, hold your tails, your thread tails here. Okay, before you get started, so you don't get a bird's nest on the outside of your bag. And because it's a pocket, I like to back stitch at the top edge. And see, we're going right over that opening and sewing it shut. And back stitch here too. So the pocket is now on. And you can see a little bit of the stitching there. So yes, you are going to see the stitching through to the other side, but you know, unless you put lining in the bag, which you can do, but I'm not on this one. It is going to show through, but it's just fine. It'll still hold your stuff. Okay, now I am going to change my top thread away from red to do the rest. So I'm putting the same color that's in my bobbin on there. Okay, now we're going to sew our straps on and do the top edge. So first, hard part is the other part of the bag keeps sliding down. First we're going to stitch along the bottom, and we're not going to back stitch because we're going to sew the side seams, so don't worry about that. Try to get it straight. Okay, and when you come to the strap, try to make sure that it's straight and shoved all the way up in there, but you're just sewing straight across. Okay, same thing, make sure it's straight. Okay, now flip the handles up, okay, like this. And I like to take the clips that I just threw. I like to take a clip and put it on the back side there so you can hold it. And we're going to sew the top edge, and this will add a nice detail to the bag, okay, by top stitching, but it also sews the straps in the up position. And now we got to do the same thing for the other side. So it's the exact same procedure, just the other side. The bag just keeps slipping off my table here because my table is really slick. Get it started and then the machine will hold. Okay, so I've got some little, well, you can't see yet. Hang on. So I've got some little strings pulling there. Just tuck them up in. Okay, if they don't come off, just tuck them up in. Now they're gone because they're sewn in. Okay, now we just have to do the sides and the bottom. And so as you can see, it's already starting to fray kind of bad like this. I'm going to show you how to do this with what's called a French seam. And so all this raw edge is going to get hidden. And let's turn you around and I'll explain the process of a French seam to you. Okay, so here you can see the pocket. Okay, that's what it looks like. And the bag is folded in half. Okay, and so the way a French seam works is first you sew the two sides with everything wrong sides together. And we're going to do kind of a narrow seam allowance. Then we're going to turn the bag wrong side out, and we're going to sew that seam again, just wider. And when you do it that way, then all of this yuckiness gets hidden in that seam. But I am going to cut some of this fringy stuff off. As best I can here. There will probably be some poking out when we finish it that we'll just have to trim off, but that's okay. So let's do the French seam. Okay, now just for good measure, I put a pin in both top edges, okay, with the top edges lined up, and I'm just going to sew. And I'm going to do a fairly narrow seam. I'm not worried about back stitching or anything like that because I'm going to sew this again. And I'm doing less than a quarter. It might be an eighth, I don't know, just less than a quarter. And the other side. Oops. Sorry, I didn't mean to bump you. It's not locked. Okay, so now we're going to turn it again. Got my handy dandy chopstick again. So just turn it right side out. Don't poke too vigorously because we did a very narrow seam allowance. Okay, and then I do press this. Just makes everything nicer. Same thing over here. See, we got some little stuff coming out. Just go ahead and cut that off now or pull it out now. Okay. And then where did my direction go? Before we sew that last seam, and I'm going to go ahead and put a little press again in the bottom because that'll help us here. I'm going to go ahead and mark for the corners. And I'm going to use one of these Friction pens because we're going to sew right on it and be fine. Okay. And so there are lines printed on it, but it tells you on the directions here that you want to fold it like this, and I'm folding it with the bottom showing, and that you want to be 2 inches from the corner, and then you draw the line across, and that's what you're going to sew. So I've got my seam lined up with the fold on the bottom, and I'm going to measure 2 inches down. Okay, and I put a line right on the bottom fold line and just draw the line. Okay, we'll use that in a minute, but it's easier if you mark it now. So same thing for the other corner. Okay, so now the last thing we've got to do is we're going to go back to the sewing machine. We're going to sew the side seams, both sides, and then we're going to refold the corner and we're going to sew across the bottom, and then we'll turn it right side out and we're done. Okay, so this time I am going to backstitch. I'm going to do a full 1/4 inch seam allowance. It might be a tad more than a 1/4 inch. I don't know. Looks like closer to 3/8. Okay, so get your hand back in there. Get this folded. Now we did draw that line before we sewed, so part of the line is going to be on the front, and that's okay. We'll iron it and it'll go away. So just get the bottom line back pressed on your seam line. And we're just going to stitch this, and I back stitch here. There's one. We're not even going to cut this out, just leave it in the bottom of your bag. That way you don't have the raw edges. It'll be just fine. Okay, so turn it right side out. You see we've got no raw edges. No raw edges there, no raw edges up here. And I'm just leaving that in there, and well, you know, we could hit it with the iron. Get rid of those marks. Turn it right side out. Okay, we do have some jaggies. That's okay. Just got to take your scissors and clean them up a little bit. Sometimes they'll pull right out, other times you just have to cut it. Just cut gently. Okay, I'll do that later. But here, let's see it. So, side 1, side 2, pocket on the inside, and it's ready to use. Very easy project. Right there. Again, there'll be a link to it if you want to make this exact project. Again, I've got just one left of the Halloween, sewing Halloween one. I'll put a link to that too in the description. And there you go. Very easy to do. Thank you for watching.